I've been qualified for nearing 3 years now, and during those 3 years I've completed my band 5 rotations. I'm repeating said rotations, and I did a secondment as a band 6. All of that has given me a lot of experience and made me feel that I am at a point where I am ready to look into senior roles and specialising and so on and so forth. As I've shared in other videos, I'm talking about when you feel ready for the job, but then, there's certain circumstances such as like the NHS hiring freeze, which I talk about in another video, so I'm not going to go into that today. But factors like that make it a bit like, And as I've shared with you before as well, I've been applying for jobs. I've been refreshing the NHS track because I feel like the NHS is the place I want to work in. I've gone for interviews, not been successful in interviews. I've reflected on what I've received as feedback from said interviews, and I kind of felt a little bit stuck at this point, thinking to myself, okay, so I'm being proactive, I'm putting myself forward for like certain activities to help out with certain events, really digging my teeth into my CSP role, and trying to put myself out there to keep building experiences, don't feel so stagnant, even though I sometimes feel like I'm very stagnant in my career at this current point. Well, this brings me on to my why as to why I decided I was going to have this sit down. Obviously, for the reasons I've said before, but also because I feel like sometimes you see yourself as being like, I'm doing everything I can do. What else can I do? That you can't tell me that I'm not screaming from the rooftops, how much I want a job, and how much I want to progress or how much I want to do that. But sometimes someone on the outside is looking and going, I'd hire her if she just did this one thing, or so that was kind of the purpose as to why I was like, I would like to have these sit down meetings and discuss that. So going into the meeting, I had prepared some questions. On one side of my notebook, I've got my little notes here, but on one side of my notebook I listed experiences that I have to this point that I think would be appealing for someone looking for a band 6 to have said experiences. But also on the other side, I listed some questions that I wanted to ask the manager. Now, like in terms of experiences, I've listed the secondment, being on call, working autonomously. It's things that most people and everybody's doing. Being educator trained, and like supporting other people through on call, being a preceptor, etc. Things along those lines that are usually a bit more senior duties. So showing that I have the capabilities already. Coming out of my meeting with my supervisor, we looked through like the stuff that are on the intranet, sorry. The things that are on the internet, what training's available, are there any additional training that I could do? So let's say, even if it's something that I'm already doing, like training on how to have a difficult conversation, I could do that. And it would be a good way to say, although I'm already doing this on the ward, I went to the training to see if there's anything else that I could do to improve the way I handle these conversations. Is there anything that I need to add to remove from that? Makes you reflect essentially. And coming out of that, I have a list of courses that my trust offers that I will be looking into and trying to get my name onto as well. And really making the most of the fact that whilst I'm still junior, like in a junior role, I can use the time to shadow other areas that may be a bit harder to do so in a senior role. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to, but it may be a bit more difficult. Anyway, going into my meeting with manager, I was like, okay, I understand that you see me in a non-clinical aspect versus like a clinical aspect. However, what skills do you what skills do successful band 6s demonstrate that you feel like I currently do not? And as I said, they know me in a clinical, non-clinical sense, so it's a bit hard to answer that. And then I asked a similar question of, if you were interviewing me, what concerns would you have? And then I'll just go through the questions and I'll say what was said. But and then I've got, what experiences would make me stronger? So they're all very similar themed questions. and just me basically being like, hey, what else can I do to tip me over the edge? And like some of the feedback was basically like, when you apply for jobs, obviously always ask for feedback on like why they even, you know, accepted your application up to this point. Why were you offered an interview? Why do you feel like you was like, well, why didn't you get the job? Obviously not like that, but like, what could I do better for my next interview, and reflect on that. And even for jobs that you do get, when you eventually get one, ask them for feedback as well, which is something I don't think about, because I feel like naturally whenever you get the job, you're like, I don't need no feedback, I'm good, I got the job, yay. But moving forward, when I do eventually find my senior role, I will be asking for feedback so I can learn from that as well. Also, sometimes considering, even though I know I would rather, okay, even though I know I would rather just climb up the ladder rather than moving from one ladder to another ladder, essentially like moving laterally. So I know that with all the experience that I currently have, I could secure a band 5 role. I don't want a band 5 role, but if I wanted to make that type of move, that is also an option, to take a band 5 role and then climb up elsewhere. So there's things that could be considered as well. Not necessarily narrowing down the areas you want to specialize in, but being aware of what they expect for the areas that you want to specialize in as well. So my specializing idea has changed like of years. Like I remember from day one when I applied for uni, I was like, I'm going to go and do neuro, and now I'm like, I'm definitely in a acute physio, frailty type of, that type of physio, like your frailty, your elderly, your falls, your A&E, your MAU type of vibe. That's my vibe there. But not completely against everything else, but like that's my forefront and all. Other things is, I personally haven't had a student, but one good thing could be to, let's say someone has a student on the team and I ask to help support the student. So when my colleague's not in, can I have the student? Can I help with like the paperwork? Can I be their second supervisor? Jumping on things like that. Even asking to shadow services in other hospitals within reason. Like networking, reaching out, so then see what they're doing and then try and like, oh, that's interesting. Service development and all of that. So it's very much like the things I got through it. But coming out of that, my action plan, which is obviously an important thing, because there's no point going into these discussions and then walking out being like, cool, thanks, and not actually doing anything about it. So what I'm doing moving forward is I'm obviously making sure my CPD folder is kept up to date. I am shadowing in areas that I would like to shadow in to build myself up there. Keeping my eye out for when someone has a student, because I'm like, please, or even a work experience student. So that's still good experience as well. I need to brush up on my LinkedIn. I want to like post more than I was before, because that will help with like the networking as well, and talking to other people in the same field as well. This doesn't necessarily outright help with getting a band 6, but more in terms of making those connections, so then I can ask other people what they're doing, or even go and shadow other people when, you know where I'm going with this. So really working on that as well, and making sure that I'm constantly reflecting on what I'm doing, looking at my competencies and comparing them to like band 6 competencies, and how can I get myself to that stage. But yeah, it's a lot. I would advise that people do sit down and have those discussions with your supervisor, with management, whoever you feel like would be the most appropriate person. It is helpful to know what's out there and what's available, and to feel that you're being supported to be able to take on that action plan. There's no point having the action plan if you have no time to action it. So it's nice. Moving forward, we're gonna have our fingers crossed. I'm like still waiting to hear back from jobs. Been applying, been refreshing, and yeah, good luck out there, guys. We're all on that road to specializing, and hopefully things get a little bit easier. Make sure you subscribe and like the video if you did, of course, and I'll catch you in another one. Bye guys.